Hello everyone, welcome back to my complete and updated Al-Haitham guide. In this video, I'm going to cover everything you need to know about Al-Haitham and make sure that this is the only guide that you need to watch if you want to build Al-Haitham.
I'm Al-Haitham, the academia scribe.
Al-Haitham is a spread on field DPS or can be a trigger for bloom or a bloom maker for a burgeon or a hyperbloom related comp. Al-Haytham's speciality includes that of his dendro infusion with his chisel-like mechanics that he uses to dish out a lot of damage.
The scribe's work is simple, which is exactly why I took the position.
Now let us talk about his talents. Normal attack. He does a 5-hit sword strike, the third one dealing 2 instances of damage. His normal attack has nothing that special to it and should be only used along with his elemental skill. Elemental skill. It has a tap and a hold version. On tap, Al-Haytham teleports forward, dealing dendro damage and infusing his auto attacks with dendro. On hold, we get to decide which direction he gets to teleport to. His skill is quite similar to that of Keqing if you ever have played a Keqing before. When you use Al-Haytham's skill, he generates 2 chisel-like mirrors. It is shown on his left shoulder. If you use Al-Haytham's skill when he has no mirrors, it will generate 2 mirrors. And if you use Al-Haytham's elemental skill, when you have 1 chisel-like mirrors, only 1 chisel-like mirror will be generated. Each mirror has a duration of 4 seconds, after which they will disappear. Al-Haytham's elemental skill is on a 18-second cooldown. Now, this chisel-like mirrors has a special mechanic and triggers something called a projection attack. Okay, now when you have mirrors and do normal attack, a projection attack will be triggered based on the number of chisel-like mirror Al-Haytham has. If he has 1 mirror, projection attack will hit once, shown by a blade that moves in a square-shaped direction. If he has 2 mirrors, it will hit twice, shown by a boomerang sword. If he has 3 chisel-like mirrors, it will hit 3 times, shown by a sword's rain down. This projection attack can be triggered once every 1.6 seconds and generate 1 particle for each projection attack, irrespective of the number of mirrors he has. This projection attack applies dendro on a special 2-hit basis. It does not follow normal ICDs but applies dendro every 2 hits. Everything else in his kit follows normal ICDs. This skill scales off of attack and elemental mastery. Hope this part was clear. If not, I recommend you watch this projection attack section once again because it will only get confusing from here. Elemental burst. It has a 70 cost burst and a cooldown of 18 seconds. His burst also depends upon the number of chisel-like mirrors he has. It consumes the existing mirrors when cast and creates the new ones based on how many you had. His burst opens a dome and hits the enemy based on the number of mirrors you have. If you cast the burst when you had 0 mirrors, it will hit 4 times. When you cast a burst, if he had 1 mirror, it will hit 6 times, and if he had 2 mirrors, it will hit 8 times, and if he had 3 mirrors, it will hit 10 times. Like I said, it will consume all the mirrors he had and create the new ones based on how many you were lacking. If you had cast the burst with 0 mirrors, after the burst is finished, it will generate 3 mirrors for Al-Haytham. If you had cast the burst with 1 mirror, it will generate 2 mirrors for Al-Haytham. And similarly, if you cast the burst with 3 mirrors, it will generate 0 mirrors. You can see it over here. And these mirrors will not be generated immediately, but will be generated after a 2-second lag. So just as you finish your burst animation, doing normal attacks will only deal physical damage and not dendro damage. Based on this, various attack rotations can be made to optimize his elemental skill and his elemental's burst damage. Make sure to leave your favorite rotations for Al-Haythams in the comments down below. Ascension 1 passive. Whenever Al-Haytham's charge attack or plunging attack hits an opponent, it will generate 1 chisel light mirrors. This effect can be triggered once every 12 seconds. So you can use your elemental skill to generate 2 chisel light mirrors and proc A1 passive to get all 3 chisel light mirrors. That is one way you can play Al-Haytham. Ascension 4 passive increases the projection attack damage and burst damage by 0.1% of each elemental mastery point Al-Haytham has. A maximum of 100% can be gained this way. And the last passive is the Weapon Ascension Material passive. As for talent priority, you want to level up your skill, then your normal attacks, and then your burst. But keep in mind to level up all of these talents, because each and every one of his talents is a big source of damage for him. And each and every talent can do tons and tons of damage. So ignoring any of these talents will lead to a huge loss in damage.
It's a little early for me. Let me get a cup of coffee first.
Now let us talk about his constellations. Al-Haytham is a complete character and doesn't need constellations, although getting constellations will be a good improvement to his playstyle. Constellation 1. It decreases 1.2 seconds on his elemental skill, which can be triggered once every 1 second when a projection attack hits the enemy. Keeping in mind that the projection attack can be triggered once every 1.6 seconds, so these two don't align with each other. This effect can be triggered once every 1 second, and the projection attack will be triggered once every 1.6 seconds. So it's quite hard to keep these two in track and to proc them consistently. C2. When he generates a mirror, he gains 50 elemental mastery for 8 seconds, maximum of 4 stacks. Each stack has an independent duration. This effect can also be triggered if he has the maximum number of chisel light mirrors. C3 will be a +3 levels for your elemental skill. C4. It gives you a buff when you use your burst, okay? For each mirror generated, Al-Haytham will get 10% dendro damage bonus for 15 seconds, okay? And for each mirror consumed, it will give 30 elemental mastery to all the other party members. So it is a nice buff to have, especially the dendro damage bonus. Unlocking this constellation would allow you to do your elemental burst first in your rotation, and then gain the dendro damage bonus for 15 seconds, and then auto attack to gain the maximum of 30 elemental damage bonus. C5 is a +3 level for your burst. C6. It makes Al-Haytham always generate 3 mirrors after the 2-second of burst cast, regardless of how many were consumed. And if he generates any mirrors when you have 3 mirrors already, he will gain 10% crit rate and 70% crit damage for 6 seconds. This duration can be added if this effect is triggered again. So this constellation is quite good if you are lacking on crit rate and crit damage. And this constellation will also allow Al-Haytham to make 3 chisel-like mirrors every time he uses his burst, regardless of how many he had before his burst. Once again, Al-Haitham is a complete character, and going for constellations is a good improvement to his playstyle, but not necessary. He can be used at C0 as well.
I think you're more excited than me about this progress.
Artifacts. Straightforward, you want to run a 4-piece gilded or a 4-piece deepwood on him. If you have another party member in your team using 4-piece deepwood, going for 4-piece gilded will be good. Or else if you don't have anyone using deepwood in your party comp, going for 4-piece deepwood would be your go-to set. Farming for 4-piece sets of the 4-piece gilded and the 4-piece deepwood is quite a pain. So if you want, you can run a 2-piece wanderer with a 2-piece gilded to gain the 80-80 elemental mastery. Farming for 4-piece of the sets that I mentioned previously is of course a pain. If you want, you can go for a 2-piece wanderer with a 2-piece gilded or 2-piece deepwood. Mix and match any of these 2-piece sets and you can gain the maximum 1. Preferably going for 2-piece wanderer and 2-piece gilded will give you that 80-80 elemental mastery. Although 2-piece attack sets are not quite recommended because elemental mastery is the core of his kit, and you can even run a 2-piece emblem if you are lacking on energy recharge. Now for the main stats, going for elemental mastery sands, render damage bonus goblets, and for hat go for a crit rate or crit damage based on what you need more. Run a attack percent timepieces if you want, but going for elemental mastery will give you more damage. And just run an attack timepiece only if you have a 40 to 50 CV. Okay, only if you have good substats, then run an attack timepiece. Otherwise, elemental mastery will be your go-to. Now, how much energy recharge does Al-Haitham needs? It mainly depends upon how many party members are there in your comp. Is there any battery like Raiden Shogun? If you're using weapon like Favonius, if you have another party member that is Dendro, going for 140 to 150 energy recharge is completely fine and is quite sufficient. If he is the only Dendro unit in your party comp, going for 150 to 170 energy recharge is quite good. Just try to aim for the energy recharge that where you can spam your burst on cooldown. Like I said, the energy recharge that he needs mainly depends upon if you have another Dendro unit, if you have a battery, or if anyone in your party comp is using any of the Favonius weapons.
Book learning alone is not enough to cultivate intelligence.
Weapons. Al-Haitham has quite a large roster of weapons, many of them being free-to-play friendly. Looking for crit rate, crit damage, or elemental mastery would be your go-to. Energy recharge is only recommended in some scenarios where he can't spam his burst of cooldown. Now, let us look at his 3-star, 4-star, and 5-star weapon choices. For 3-star, there are only 2 swords, one being Harbinger of Dawn for his good crit rate and crit damage that it can provide. Although you would need a good shielder to maintain this passive, but if you have a good shielder, it is a good option to run a Harbinger of Dawn on your Al-Haitham. For the other option that I mentioned in the 3-star weapons would be the Dark Iron Sword. It is a good option for the elemental mastery that it's providing and the attack gaining passive that he has. 4-star weapon choices. Iron Sting would be the best 4-star weapon choices, although it would cost you a Iron Sword billet. It provides you with the elemental mastery that you need, and it is also free to play friendly. If you have played the past events and received a Tokabo Shigure, it is a good option because it has Elemental Mastery as its secondary stat and a good passive that would work well against single target enemies. It is also a free-to-play friendly weapon option. If you're playing Genshin Impact since a long time, if you have the Festering Desire, it is a good option as well. But due to the energy recharge, its second stat will be wasted, but its passive will be great. Sapwood Blade is another option that you can run on your Al-Haitham that can give you the extra energy recharge that you'll need and can be only helpful if you know how to use the passive of Sapwood Blade. The other 4-star weapon choices would be the Zyok's Moonlight because of the elemental mastery and the energy recharge that it can provide you with. And for crit options, going for Black Sword and Black Cliff would be your go-to for it gives you crit rate and crit damage respectively. Favonius is also a good option, but it's quite niche and the energy recharge that it provides you with is greatly wasted on Al-Haitham, where he has other weapon options that you can run on him. Now let us talk about the 5-star weapon choices. His best in slot will be the Light of Folliger Incision, which is his signature weapon. If you have the Mist Splitter or the Jade Cutter, both of them can be useful, especially the Mist Splitter. The Haran Gepasu Futsu is also a good option. And if you have the Freedom Swan lying around, it is a good option to run that as well due to the elemental mastery that it can provide and the normal attack, charge attack and plunging attack damage bonus that its passive will provide you with.
Rather than lacing my words with rhetoric, I prefer speaking factually.
Now let us talk about Al-Haytham's party comps. He can be used as an on-field DPS, trigger for bloom, version and hyperbloom related comps, and can be used in different ways. One of the ways would be the spread comp, where Al-Haytham is paired with an Electro like Fischl, Miko, Lisa or even Raiden would be good to proc the spread and aggravate reactions. And as your second Dendro unit, you can run a Nahida or the Dendro Traveler. And for the 4th slot, if you want, you can run a healer or a shielder or a Viridescent Shredder. Okay, any of these would be good. Now you might ask why Viridescent Shredder, because Animo and Dendro don't react with each other. Now in this party comp there is an Electro, and if you can swirl the Electro reaction, it can give you a nice increase in the aggravate damage that the Electro character can do. For a bloom comp, Al-Haytham is paired with another Dendro and 2 Hydro supports. The Hydro supports can be Shincho, Yelan, a Burst, Ayato, Kokomi or even Barbara. And you can use Al-Haytham is in a Nilo bloom comp as well. Okay, it would be a good option and you can see tons of damage from the blooms. As for the Dendro, you can run a Nahida, Kole and even Tainari in some situations. And if you don't have any of the options, even running the Dendro Traveler would be a good option. Now for a Hyperbloom comp, going for a Al-Haytham paired with an Electro character like Raiden or Cookie that can proc Hyper Bloom off field would be a good option. And to make a bloom, you should pair these two with a Hydra support like Shincho, Yelan, Ayato and Kokomi. And for the 4th slot, a flex slot would be Zhongli and Nahida. Going for Nahida will give you more Dendro application. Or even if you don't have enough Hydro, going for 2 Hydro characters in this party comp would be good as well. Now for a Virgin comp, Al-Haitham is paired with a pyro character that can proc a version of field like Shangling and Toma. Keeping in mind that if you run Shangling, you would need a battery for Shangling, and you would need tons and tons of energy recharge on her. Al-Haitham and the pyro character now is paired with a Hydra support to make general cores like Yelan, Shinshu, Ayato, or Kokomi. The last slot will be the flex slot, and you can run a Zhongli, Nahida, or even another Hydra support. That's all for now. I hope you understood all the party comps that I mentioned right now. If not, rewind, watch this video, and it will be clear. I hope I explained Al-Haytham's kit properly and you were able to understand. That's all for this video. If you enjoyed and understood this kit, liking and subscribing to the channel will be greatly appreciated, as we are trying to hit 10,000 subscribers by the end of this year. That's all for now. Marvelous Gamer signing off. Bye bye.